let me just start by talking about the world in 2014, because it's pretty bad as far as I can see. We've had an unprecedented degree of instability in the world, but it seems to me that the world is actually divided into two very different parts. So in one part, which is Eurasia, you have two large countries, Russia and China, that are centralized, stable states that are authoritarian and that have territorial ambitions. And in many ways, this is, in my view, actually the bigger long-term challenge for the United States and other Western countries in dealing with that. But it's kind of a familiar, it's a familiar problem of the sort that we saw in the 19th and 20th centuries. But there's another part of the world that begins in North Africa, goes through sub-Saharan Africa into the Middle East, and then all the way out to the borders of India, in which you've got kind of the opposite problem. You don't have states. You don't have basic political order. And the main task in that part of the world, in places like Libya, Syria, Iraq right now, is actually reconstituting some basic form of state. And American foreign policy, and actually this is really how I got into this whole two-book project in the first place, American foreign policy is actually centered around how do you actually create viable institutions, because ultimately you're not going to have peace in places like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, unless you have states that can keep order. They will hopefully be democratic as well, but the stateness is really key. And I think, unfortunately, the United States has discovered that we don't really know how to do this as an outside power. This is the problem that I call getting to Denmark, where Denmark is actually not the country Denmark, but it's kind of a symbol for a well-governed, peaceful, prosperous, uncorrupt place. And we want to turn Afghanistan or Somalia or Yemen into some version of Denmark, and we're just not making very much progress. So it turns out I actually had a visiting professorship at the University of Aarhus, and I spent some time in Denmark, and it turns out the Danes don't know how they got to be Denmark either. And so this is what started this long historical effort to uncover the origins of some basic institutions, and that's kind of the context for both of these books.